right, I think we'll start. So good afternoon and happy Wellness Wednesday. I am Lauren Monley, Program Manager for the Military Spouse Fellowship Team in the National Capital Region for Hiring Our Heroes. Today's session is all about well-being in the remote workplace. So we are joined by Tom O'Neill from Wounded Warrior Project, and he will be sharing best tips and practices for supporting wellness in the workplace. So I think most of us now in this very virtual world can take away some great tips from today. So thank you very much to Wounded Warrior for hosting and partnering with us for our community on this Wellness Wednesday. Real quick housekeeping tips. Today's session is recorded, so please note that. I'm going to direct everyone to the bottom and use the Q&A function here and not the chat. Between myself and Tom, we will get those questions answered at the end. And now I have the privilege to introduce you to Tom O'Neill, who is a physical health and wellness specialist with Wounded Warrior Project and has been working with athletes, veterans, and communities for the past 11 years in the fitness and wellness space. Tom's goals for all those he works with is to make exercise fun, accessible, and part of a holistic picture of health in the pursuit of living longer and with more active lives. So Tom, I am going to let you go.
Thank you so much, Lauren, and thank you so much for having us today. Obviously, we at Wounded Warrior Projects are so thankful to have a platform to be able to communicate with other sort of veterans and wounded service members, or just the community alike, to be able to express what it is that we do, which I'd be happy to give a little bit more program briefs towards the end of my presentation today as well. But today, of course, I am here to focus on well-being in the workplace. And specifically, today, I would like to focus on the concept of exercise in the small times. Knowing that obviously we all have very packed schedules and we really don't know what's kind of coming down the pipeline nowadays for a lot of us in this both virtual and very flexible world that we have to live in. And so what I wanted to discuss today was using those small pockets of time that we find throughout the day and throughout the week to take advantage of, to be able to find time for our physical activity, and just why exactly that physical activity is so important. So I wanted to start today by just discussing, first of all, the importance of physical activity, what the benefits are, what are some things that we should be thinking of the different kinds of physical activity, be them aerobic, strength training, flexibility training, and whatnot. We'll go over some foundational exercises and expectations to be able to have about fitness, as well as some strategies to be able to fit it into your workday and into your working from home days possibly. And finally, we'll end up with doing a quick little 5-minute exercise routine, just to show you how even incorporating a small period of exercise throughout the day, and hopefully multiple times throughout the day, can get the blood pumping, can get your heart moving, and help not only with your physical health, but with your mental health, your focus, and everything that you do on top of this as well. So if we go ahead and go to the next slide here. First thing here, of course, I wanted to kick off with the importance of physical activity. If you've been tuning into some of the previous Wellness Wednesdays, I know that some other physical health and wellness specialists and professionals from Wounded Warrior Projects have discussed this. So of course, I find it important to be able to reiterate with everybody, should we have any new folks joining us for today's session. But going down the list here, obviously, physical activity is so important for us for a myriad of different reasons. First and foremost, increasing just our general physical capacity, right, and our ability to perform our activities of daily life. Now, our activities of daily life are obviously going to differ from person to person. Some of us have more active lifestyles. If we're using our hands more, we're working in more of a blue-collar setting, while some of us may be very desk-bound or home-bound, and our activities of daily life may differ. But be that as it may, we all are using our bodies in some way, shape, or form every day. That's what they're built to do. They're built to move. They're built to be used as a tool to accomplish tasks. And so whether or not your activities of daily life are picking up a kid and putting them over your shoulder to take them to bed each evening, walking a dog outside, mowing the grass, or simply sitting at your desk and typing and needing to be able to get up and move around the house to be able to accomplish tasks as it may be, it's important to realize that physical activity can help with that capacity for both energy and strength to complete those activities more efficiently and more safely, of course. We also, of course, like to discuss the idea of enhanced feelings of well-being and self-confidence. This one is a little bit of a given as well, of course, with physical activity, where we all feel better when we're more physically active, when we feel more capable, and most importantly, when we feel more independent is such a key point there. Realizing that if you're not relying on other people for help, and if you can feel like you can accomplish tasks individually and successfully and easily, we all just feel that increased self-confidence, or what we even sometimes refer to as self-efficacy as well. Improved heart and lung function and decreased risk of injuries are some other sort of important physical activity examples here. From a physical health standpoint, we know that your heart and lung function are going to be dependent on how hard you work them. And if you are working over and above the demands that your daily life requires you to have, you of course are then doing exercise. And by doing exercise, we are increasing our capacity to do even more activities and perform those activities daily life efficiently, as well as expand the useful years of our life to be able to be healthy, be active, be moving, and participate in activities that we find joy from ourselves. Finally, the reduction in coronary artery disease risk factors. So CAD risk factors, that's heart disease, just cut and dry. These are things like reducing our resting blood pressure, improving our glucose tolerance, our blood sugar tolerance in our body, increasing good cholesterol and lowering bad cholesterol as well as increasing fat-free mass and decreasing fat mass in our bodies, which unfortunately, the more we have, the more active it is in producing inflammation within us. And we can draw almost everything back to systemic inflammation for the negative things that happens in our body. Last but not least, exercise obviously benefits every part of the body, but it also benefits the mind so much, as I alluded to earlier. It causes the body to physically make chemical changes that can help a person feel good and can help you sleep better, improve your mood, your self-esteem, your focus. One of the common things that we talk about with physical activity is that if you ever have a very demanding, focus, intense activity that you're preparing for, the best time to be physically active is immediately preceding that activity. One of the reasons why I myself and a lot of other people in the fitness community are so big advocates for keeping physical activity in schools, knowing that it's such an important part of the learning process as well. On top of all this, not only with the heart disease, we know that physical activity can help people with the weight loss and reduction in other sort of diseases like type 2 diabetes, and all around different diseases that may arise from systemic inflammation, as well as just helping us age well, right? Your bodies will thank you for the work that you put in today, and fighting off the age-related loss of muscle, which all of us were probably familiar with, is something that strength-based training and even cardiovascular training can just help us keep that functionality moving forward. So looking at the next slide here, how much should I exercise? Obviously, that was a lot on the importance and what the benefits are of physical activity and exercise, but what are my limitations? What should I be aiming to do? Well, when we look here at the next slide here, the guidelines of how much we should exercise, first and foremost, you'll note that we always try and follow the American College of Sports Medicine, or ACSM, guidelines. This is an organization that is one of the few academic groups with a research journal and who does independent research to support their claims in exercise science. Also, obviously, they do this in conjunction with other specialty groups like the American Heart Association, the American Diabetes Association, and other leading metabolic health groups as well. Ideally, when we think about our different fitness training, we kind of break it down into three different categories: our cardiorespiratory fitness, our strength or our resistance fitness, and then our flexibility. Now, I didn't include flexibility on this slide only because it is something that we should do every day, although I will talk about it a little bit later once we're done here. Now, for the cardiorespiratory fitness training, ideally, this is something that we're performing 3 to 5 days a week for 30 to 60 minutes at a moderate intensity, or 20 to 25 minutes at a vigorous intensity, or of course a combination of the two. Now, what does that really mean, the moderate versus the vigorous? Well, the way that we identify exercise intensity at the most basic level is using a 1 to 10 scale, what we call the modified Borg scale. But essentially, this just means that you should be feeling somewhere in the middle of a 4 to a 6 out of 10 intensity for it to be a moderate level exercise, and then somewhere around a 7 to 8 for more vigorous intensity exercise. You should never have to feel like you're exercising at your maximum capacity at a 9 or a 10. Those are places where there can sometimes be safety issues that we're concerned with. And so we don't necessarily recommend that you're working there. Now, if numbers aren't your thing, another way to be able to tell how hard you're working is using just a simple talk test, where if you can exercise and carry on a conversation like I'm doing with you today, you're more than likely having a very low intensity exercise session because you're able to breathe while you talk and talk continuously and quickly as I'm doing. Now, if you are instead only able to do maybe a sentence at a time, or you have to stop to take more breaths and you enjoy when the other person you're talking with has an opportunity to speak, you may be operating at a little bit more of a moderate level intensity here. And then, of course, if you are struggling to get even a sentence out or a couple of words at a time, and maybe you're just giving affirmative or negative assumptions to the people who you're talking to, then that's a little bit more vigorous intensity as well. And although that 1 to 10 scale and that talk test are much more subjective measures, meaning they're all kind of dependent on yourself, and there's no definite what a 10 means or what the hard to talk means, although they're subjective measures of our physical intensity, through academic research, we do know that they're very highly correlated, meaning that they are very similar to if we were looking at your heart rate or another sort of more objective measure, meaning that they are reliable for you, okay? Now, when we talk about strength training, with strength training and resistance-based training, ideally here our guidelines are about 2 to 3 days per week working each major muscle group, okay? Major muscle groups aren't things like saying, okay, well, I got to do this teeny tiny motion for the inside of my leg. No, major muscle groups, we're talking about just the 3 major muscles on your lower body, your quads, your glutes, your hamstrings, and then for your upper body, your core, your chest, your back, and your arms, okay? We can get more specific than that, but really what it's saying is just make sure that you're staying well balanced, right? If you're doing push exercises, pair them with pull exercises so that you're not overworking one side of the body, okay? You can see down below there that ideally within these training sessions 2 to 3 times a week, we're performing 2 to 4 sets of exercises for 8 to 12 repetitions, meaning if I were to do 10 push-ups and then rest and then do another set of 10 push-ups, I've done 2 sets of push-ups, 10 repetitions each time, okay? Difference between the sets and the reps there. An important thing to remember though, with strength training especially, is that if we are beginners, if we're novices with strength training, single sets, meaning just doing anything, can be effective, okay? Especially for those beginners as we're still developing those connections between our nerves and our muscles and trying to strengthen our muscles through just activation of them, even just in a very minimal sense, okay? So don't be discouraged by the fact that maybe this adds up to quite a lot of time that you should be exercising. The whole point of this presentation today is to talk about how even the small bursts of energy, even doing just one set of some sort of exercise can be an effective way to increase our overall physical activity, okay? Now, just to quickly kind of go into the flexibility training as well. Flexibility training, as we do strength training, as we do cardiovascular and cardiorespiratory fitness training, our body can become a little bit tighter, meaning that sometimes the connective tissue underneath the skin can become a little bit more dense and needs to be stretched out so that we have that mobility to be able to perform all those activities of daily life. Flexibility training can be either static, where we're holding a stretch for a long period of time, or it can be dynamic, where you're working slowly through a full range of motion. We always tell people that without a warm-up, you should be focusing on the dynamic stretching rather than holding a single pattern still for a long period of time in order to avoid hurting yourself. But the important part to take away from that is that mobility training and flexibility training does not have an upper limit. And that is something that we should probably doing at least once a day, just a little bit, okay? And that just means making sure that you are taking the time to bring your knees up to your chest, to be able to bend down and be able to pick something up off the ground. We want to make sure that whenever you have to do something within your activities of daily life, that your body is feeling mobile and prepared to do that motion so that you're avoiding and you're reducing your risk of injury, okay? Now, if we look at the next slide here, Obviously, the biggest thing on this slide is kind of what's stopping us, right? It's easy to know what we should be doing. We should be exercising. That's pretty clear to most people. But time is such a big barrier that the question remains, how do we go about doing this? The average person is being asked to do just so much and to be so active in both their own life and in everybody else's life that it leaves most of us feeling like we're unable to take even just one moment to breathe, let alone take a time aside to exercise solely for what we view as our own benefit, okay? It's easy to think of taking time to exercise as a selfish activity, and this is something that we deal with quite often, we being coaches like myself within Wounded Warrior Project with the individuals who we have the opportunity to work with, how if you're exercising for any other reason other than to lose physical weight, some people believe that that shouldn't be a priority and that others viewing your exercise won't really understand why you're finding that important, right? But the big thing is that I today am here to tell you that not only is making time to exercise a very manageable barrier, and it's something that we shouldn't be scared of, but that taking this time out of your day to exercise for yourself, even if it's not in a weight loss context, is the exact opposite of a selfish act and something that we should all be making time for as often as we can. Within reason, of course, we don't want to go overboard, right? Now, why is it not selfish? Well, a common character trait for veterans that we work with here at Wounded Warrior Project, and a common character trait for the teammates who work within our organization as well, is that we all have this very service-focused mentality, right? We approach service as, what do I have to give up for someone else to benefit, putting others before ourselves. And that is a very admirable character trait for all of us to have. But most of us, when we're thinking about service-focused mentalities, start thinking about energy and money and resources and what sort of things in those capacities can I give up to the benefit of others. But time itself kind of remains a little bit more elusive, right? We're all familiar with giving up our own time to help others, but what if we had the power to influence how much time we have to give others in the first place, right? What that means is exercise and physical movement, along with proper balanced nutrition and other sort of holistic health measures, kind of can come in here to help us not only be able to use time efficiently now, but to gain more time later so that we can continue with that service-focused mentality. This is where, we're talking about how exercise and taking the time now is an unselfish act, okay? The way I like to approach it with the warriors who I work with is say, would you rather give up 20 to 30 minutes a day now to take care of yourself, but you gain years of independence and the ability to continue to serve others later in your life? Or would you rather focus all of your energy now on others, right? Never think about yourself, pour everything into the service-focused mentality that you have, and then lose these functional and active years on the back end where you're not able to do things independently and where you think back and you have that regret of, I really wish I took care of myself when I had the capacity or when time was of the essence, right? Sometimes that least selfish thing that we can do in order to take care of others is to take care of ourselves, because it enables us to give back to others in a more powerful and more effective way, okay? Now, on the next slide here, let's start talking about kind of how this all adds up, right? Because the guidelines themselves suggest a lot of exercise if you were to break it all down into individual segments, where you're asking for 150 minutes of cardio activity. You're asking for 3 days worth of strength training. And they don't all have to be separate engagements. You can combine a lot of these. But even more importantly, we should realize that short bursts of activities can help get us to meet these guidelines that the American Heart Association, the American Diabetes Association are setting for us to lead more active lives, right? Finding 5 to 10 minutes in just small pockets throughout the day can really add up to a lot over the course of the week, right? And in the same way, right, it's hard for us to think about those small beneficial activities leading to big benefits. But think about it from the opposite standpoint, where if I were to have small snacks all the time throughout the day, over the course of the day, that would add up to a lot more food than I intended to eat, right? Same sort of idea works in reverse with the benefits of physical activity. So here are just a couple really quick examples of things that we can be doing that seem obvious, but may not be something that we're doing because they almost seem too obvious. So parking further away at work or when you go to the market to increase the amount that you have to walk. This is something that I like to do. It's especially effective if you're going somewhere like the Home Depot and you got to push that heavy cart of supplies back to your car afterwards. Gets you a little bit of extra physical activity, gets those steps up there as well. Taking the stairs at work, of course, you have to have the ability to do so. Make sure before you take the stairs that you can get into the door you're going to in the first place. But doing that can just be a good habit to start forming and to realize, if I'm going to go up and down the stairs to lunch or to run back to my car to grab something, that you're taking the time to get a little bit of that extra physical activity in there as well. 10-minute exercise circuits to get yourself moving at your desk. This is something we'll do at the end of our presentation here today. We'll just do a 5-minute circuit, but just think if you took 5 minutes out of the hour, each hour to do just a quick burst of physical activity. Well, over the course of the workday, right, 5 minutes out of 8 hours, that can add up, okay? And suddenly you're hitting those 150 minutes of physical activity easily every single week, okay? Now, 5 to 10 minutes, right? I'm sure a lot of us might already be rolling our eyes a little bit and saying like, well, I just don't have time, right? People tell me all the time, and the warriors who I work with tell me all the time that 5 to 10 minutes at various times of the day, I don't have even a moment to breathe. I can't make that happen. I'm here to tell you that I think all of us have that time. And I think that no matter how busy we are, if you were to sit down and truly account for every moment of your day, there are going to be times where you catch yourself scrolling on your phone, daydreaming, looking at Twitter, at Instagram, at Facebook, maybe even procrastinating in a way that you think is keeping you busy and may feel as though you're doing a lot, but in reality, it's distracting you from other work that you're doing, right? So it may feel as though we're always nonstop busy, but not only do I think that if we were to all sit down and really do that time accounting for ourselves, that that's not the case, even if it was, taking some small time out of your day each day to move will help make you more productive. It'll make you more efficient, more focused on the task and the work at hand. And if you're more focused, more efficient, and more productive, then you're going to have more time each day than you ever thought was possible. And then if we fill that time with beneficial and healthy activities for ourselves, like exercise, it just compounds on one another, right? It's like compounding interest here. So taking these small times for movements may sound kind of silly, right? These other sort of examples down here, squats during the commercial breaks during your favorite show, push-ups when the opposing team scores when you're watching a football game or basketball or something like that. If you do it watching basketball, that would be a lot of push-ups, so maybe not that. But, right, taking that small time, feeling silly that way, I don't believe that that's any sillier than feeling as though that we're too busy to care for our own well-being, okay? We get the most bang for our buck when you go from doing nothing to doing something. So why not try to do anything at all, okay? If you just thought about it in basic math terms, if you were doing 0 minutes of physical activity and suddenly you were doing 10 minutes of physical activity each day, that's a 10-fold increase. That's a huge increase in the amount of activity that you're giving your body, and it's gonna be reflected positively in your physical health and wellness, okay? Now, let's talk about some strategies to make that happen with other people, because obviously most of us don't operate as individual units, right? We have families, we have friends. How do we make this work while maintaining our social health? Well, to that I say, let's get the family involved, right? Make movement a family activity. Weekend hikes, backyard sports, playing soccer, having a catch, running around the backyard, chasing the dog, nightly walks with the family, or building games and trying new things centered around physical activity. It's common for all of us to feel really overwhelmed with these family obligations and to feel as though, on top of the fact that we're busy, we're never spending enough quality time with the family. And if that's the case, make movement that family engagement activity and have that be your quality time, right? Finding fun activities to do with your family, like these here, the hikes, the playing basketball in the driveway, the making the nightly walk a ritual with the family and maybe even with the pup if you got one. Not only are you more likely to complete activities when you have your unit, your family invested as well, but especially if you have children, setting these good examples at an early age for younger kids means that years down the road, they're going to have a healthier perception of physical activity and a healthier relationship with exercise, to not just be about losing weight, but something that you do to maintain your physical health, okay? Now, obviously, some of us may not be lucky enough to have families right now, and that's okay, right? But to that, we think about surrounding ourselves with active influences, okay? What does that look like? For those of us without it, right, we may not have the family, we may not have kids, or we may have older kids who have left already, right? One of the greatest way to be successful is to continue surrounding yourself with those people who are active in your life, right? It's a common thought that we will act as the average of the 5 people who we surround ourselves with and we spend the most time with. So if you surround yourself with people whose behaviors are moving you forward, you're more likely to move forward versus people who are holding you back. If your friend group just wants to sit down at the restaurant or on the couch or at the bar every single day and have their life slowly just revolve around food and that sedentary lifestyle, it's pretty obvious what your life is going to revolve around too to maintain your social health, right? It's going to be the same. But if you surround yourself with people instead who are always looking for new activities to try and maybe like to use their free time to sweat and to move, then you'll find yourself engaging in those activities more often as well, okay? And if you don't have those friends in your life, then it could be a great time for you to be able to be that catalyst, right? For you to be able to help spur that activity in your friend's life, and just starting small with the walks around the park, with the getting out now that we've kind of broken into the fall here, and try to enjoy your time outdoors as much as you can, safely, obviously with your masks and social distance. But being that positive influence and helping have those positive consequences come out of your actions can be huge, and your friends will thank you for it as well, okay? Now, let's talk about the exercises themselves. So 2 exercises I just really want to touch on real quick here are some foundational exercise movements, the plank and the squat, okay? Now, the plank position, the reason why this is a foundational exercise and why the plank and the squat are 2 movements where, regardless of what you're doing, these are things that we should be familiar with and we should be confident in our ability to perform, is because they show up and they're reflected in every other exercise we do, right? Bottom line is the plank is about core stability, okay? So you can see here the key points. We have our hands placed under our shoulders with our hands about shoulder width apart, palms facing forward. If your wrists are not something that can take that sort of pressure, putting yourself up on a raised surface or keeping your wrists at neutral by holding on to some like dumbbells or something like that can be really helpful as well. But making sure that we're not straining too hard. We have our core engaged, drawing our belly button into our spine and keeping length through the back, right? You don't want to look all rounded in that cat position in yoga. Instead, rather than feeling that strain in your lower back, you should feel solid, you should feel stable, as though somebody pushing you from the side isn't going to just knock you over all willy-nilly, right? You also see that the legs and the lower body, the glutes, the quads, the hamstrings, those major muscle groups we were talking about, also stay nice and engaged. That helps keep us as one nice, tight unit. And then finally, number 4 there, that the gaze should remain forward and down, making sure that your neck stays long and as straight as possible, rather than gazing in between your hands where we're more likely to lift our hips, or gazing too far forward where we could strain our necks if any of us have any sort of upper back issues like that. Now, the reason why this is a foundational exercise is because we should always be returning to this exercise while we're doing anything else, right? If you can maintain and be aware of the quality of your plank position and truly your core stability positions here throughout each exercise that you do, your workouts will not only be safer, but they're going to be more effective as well, okay? All exercises done correctly are going to engage your core strength. So you don't have to and shouldn't just rely on doing stuff like the plank. And you most certainly should not just rely on doing flexion exercises like crunches to strengthen your core, right? That's not going to be a super effective and not really a safe way to exercise either. Our core was built to stabilize our spine. It wasn't built to do repetitive flexion forward motions like that, okay? Now, the squat, on the other hand here, this is another sort of core movement that we should all be familiar with, and something that, whether you realize it or not, you do a lot during the day, okay? And you do it through standing up and sitting down in a chair. Now, for the squat here, you can see we normally start by keeping our feet shoulder width apart and turn slightly out so that the knees are tracking directly over the toes, okay? Making sure we're being cautious of that knee health. We keep our core engaged, right? Remember, the plank is that foundational motion. Breaking at the hips like you see in picture number 2 there, and sending the glutes backwards as though you were sitting down in a chair. Important to realize you're sending them backwards, not straight down. You wouldn't sit straight down towards the ground and then shoot your hips back if you were sitting in a chair, right? You'd reach backwards as well. You keep your body weight over the middle of your heel area on your feet. Avoid lifting those heels off the ground so you remain stable, and that's going to be important, especially all the way back up, because you're going to lower that body until the crease of your hips is just below your knees, like you can see there in picture number 3. Keep your chest as high as you can with your core engaged so that you're not straining your back, right? We don't want to be pulling our shoulders back too far. We just want to keep our chest high. And then to reverse, we just drive our feet into the ground, which they already should be, and then extend through our knees and our hips at the same time to rise up to the top. Now, that all sounds complicated when you break it down, right? But like I said, we're all doing this movement every single day, constantly, when we sit down and we stand up in a chair. Now, the question is, do you do it by grabbing onto something, or do you do it where you rock yourself back and then kind of lean forward and jump out of it? Those are suggestions that maybe we're lacking stability or strength in our knees and our hips. And those are things that we should be aware of, need to be solved, because if we, at a young age, start to lose that stability and strength in our knees and our hips, it's not going to get better with age, right? It's only going to get better with practice, okay? So here we really want to make sure that we're engaging the hips, we're engaging the quads, the hamstrings through the full motion to achieve the most effective and best quality movement, not just for the squat, but for all low body movements and variations. And this is going to be important regardless of whether or not you're a walker, a cyclist, or if you're just chilling on the couch as well, all right? Now, all well and good to know what the foundational movements are, but what do we do if we have limitations, right? Well, we modify for them, okay? I'm a very firm believer that exercise is accessible for everyone, every single person, okay? And that anyone can benefit from it. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to look the exact same for anybody either, right? I'm not going to exercise the way that you might exercise in the same way that neither of us are going to exercise the way a professional athlete does, okay? It's all based on the demands of our activities of daily life, like we mentioned at the beginning of the presentation here. Regardless of your experience or your abilities, right, there's something out there for you. Our bodies were made to move. They were physically made to move. And if you're intentional and you're thoughtful about it, there's always going to be a way to make it happen. So you can see here some just very basic examples, right? If we're lacking strength, strength might be a limitation that we have because we're a beginner at exercise. Reduce the amount of weight that you're working against, right? If you're doing body weight motions, well, guess what? The weight you're working against is called gravity, okay? And so what you do is you reduce the amount of gravity you're working against by raising your body up, by sitting down not quite as far, by using some sort of tool to help you use maybe like your upper body, like a TRX or something of that nature, okay? Same thing, you see kind of catty-cornered to that, lacking mobility, right? We have that chair squat right there. That's a really good exercise to be able to have and a good tool to be able to use to give us that confidence, right? We talked about how exercise helps build that self-confidence, that self-efficacy. Well, if that's something that we're lacking in the first place, we most certainly don't want to put ourselves in a situation where we feel unsafe. And so by finding tools to help control the environment in which we're exercising, like a chair where you know every time you sit down, the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to hit the chair, okay? You're not going to fall down on the ground. That helps us build that confidence and be able to focus more on the task at hand, the strengthening of our body, rather than being overwhelmed with the safety aspect of it, okay? Speaking of the safety aspects, obviously, of course, if we're avoiding impact or we have previous injuries, we can modify for those as well. If you're avoiding impact, finding low impact activities to do. There's aqua right there in that picture that you can see. If you're somebody who can't run because maybe your knees and your hips can't take that kind of impact, cycling is a great alternative, right? Swimming is a great alternative. Using an elliptical is a great alternative. Just because you can't do one activity doesn't mean you can't do any activity, okay? Same thing if you have a previous injury. Of course, we are always going to advocate for making sure that you take the time to rehabilitate the injury and go through the physical therapy that may be prescribed to you. But at the same time, we got to make sure that you don't use that as an excuse to limit you. And once you've graduated through, realize that we can progress and we can improve. And if not, we can find something else that works for us, okay? Now, with all that being said, this whole presentation is about exercise in the small time. So what I would like everybody who's watching us now to do is we're gonna make it happen. We're gonna do a little 5-minute circuit, okay? And so we're gonna make it super, super simple. And this is just gonna be an example of something that you can do where if you take 5 minutes out of the hour while you're working, 5 minutes, the same 5 minutes that you'd probably spend on Facebook or Instagram, right? To do some sort of physical movement throughout the day, that is gonna add up. And if it adds up throughout the day, it adds up throughout the week, and then you're gonna see huge benefits from that over time, okay? So the 5-minute circuit we're gonna do, and you're gonna see I'm gonna turn off this virtual background and I'm gonna do it with you, okay? Is gonna be 3 different motions. It's gonna be a 5-minute plank shoulder tap, okay, which I'll demonstrate here in a moment, 10 push-ups, and 15 squats. And I'll even show you how we can modify those exercises as well. So let me go ahead and turn off my virtual background so that you guys can see me. Perfect. Okay, you can see that I am down in my little exercise area at home in our little gym space here. But essentially, right, we're going to be doing these exercises, and you can see I got my box here to help demonstrate what's going on. But for the plank shoulder tap, so we've got 5, 10, 15 for 5 minutes. We're just going to be running in a little cycle like that, okay? For the plank shoulder taps, simply all I want you to do is you're going to start in a plank position. So just like we were talking about with those foundational exercise, right? My hands are under my shoulders, my wrists are facing forward, all right? My head is pointed down and forward, okay? I'm not looking underneath my feet. I'm not looking too far forward either, although you may see me do that just to check on you guys. And from here, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shift my weight to one side ever so slightly, touch my shoulder, back down, touch my shoulder, back down. Notice that I'm trying not to rock my hips side to side like this, because instead that's focusing on alternating my balance, okay, and making that compensation rather than focusing on my core stability. The shoulder tap is about core stability. So it'll look like this: 1, 1, 2, 2, all the way up to 5. Now, maybe being all the way down on the ground like that just isn't going to be an option for you. That's okay. That's why I have this box right here, which could be the same thing as a chair, which could be the same thing as your couch, which could be the same thing as a countertop, okay? Table, whatever it is, just make sure it's stable, right? And from here, what I'm gonna do is I'll just bring my body up. So now I'm further off the ground, my upper body is further up, I'm reducing the amount of gravity I'm working against, and now I'm more easily able to alternate my hands and tap my shoulders here, okay? That brings us right into the push-up, okay? There's a reason why I did the shoulder taps into the push-up, fast transitions, right? For the push-up, again, I'll show you here modified first. My hands are elevated. I can even bring my feet further apart to help with my balance. And I'm slowly gonna keep my body in that plank position, lower, lower, lower down, as low as I can, and then press through my hands back up, trying to move as one single unit here. Rather than down here, don't wanna see any of that. We wanna keep our hips low, keep our core engaged, and move through that push-up. Maybe that's gonna be too much for us still. We have the wall as an option, right? We can place our hands as high as you want to be able to move down and up as one unit. You can, of course, also do that on the ground, making sure that you're coming down, not dropping and relaxing all the way at the bottom, but maintaining tension down and up, okay? Last but not least is that squat. We're gonna do a body weight squat, meaning you don't have to have any objects with you, don't have to worry about any of that, but most simply, you're sitting down and you're standing up. So if you feel kind of weird about doing that in the office, right, use the chair. That way it just looks like you're checking on something in the cube next to you, right? We would just start in a nice seated position, making sure you're sitting at the very front of your box, chair, whatever it might be. Couch works too. Your feet, again, about shoulder width, hip width apart, turning the toes out ever so slightly. I'll turn to you guys so you can see exactly what I'm doing. It's more important that you see my hips than my face, okay? And from here, bring my hands in front of you, I shift my weight forward ever so slightly. I'm gonna drive through my feet in the ground, boom, and stand up, coming to full extension with my hips at the top. From there, I'm gonna bring my hands back out in front of me for a nice balance, and I'm gonna go back, 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 and guess what, worst comes to worst? I just sit back down, okay? If you don't wanna use any sort of tool or any sort of implement, you simply would just do that off of the box. So I'd start with those feet in the same position. We'd start in a standing position instead of a seated position, and I bring my hips down, and then back up. Noticing that I'm trying to keep a straight line from my hips through my spine, okay? Excellent. So like I said, what we're gonna do is we're gonna do 5 total minutes, 5 plank shoulder taps on each side, right into 10 push-ups, which you can take as much rest in between as you'd like, right into 15 squats. And guess what? If you do it once and 5 minutes is still not over, you're gonna do it again. And then again and again and again, and take the most of that time. It's only 5 minutes, right? I've been talking for 40 minutes. I think we can move for 5 minutes. It should be good. All righty. So I'm gonna go ahead and set a timer for 5 minutes, and I will talk you guys through it the whole time here. Let me get this going. 5 minutes. Are we ready? Everybody got some space around them? You got a chair, you got a wall, you got everything that you need? All righty, I'm gonna show you modifications throughout as well. I won't just do it one way. Here we go. We're gonna start in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's do it. Plank shoulder taps first. 1 and 1, 2 and 2, 3 and 3, 4 and 4, 5 and 5. Good. Rest if you need to. Shake out those hands. 10 push-ups are next. 10 push-ups at your own pace. Maybe we're doing the full push-ups. Maybe we're putting our knees down so that we're doing a little bit of a modified push-up here as well, but we're still focused on keeping that plank position throughout. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Woo, bring that knee down, shake out the hands, shake out the arms. Go ahead and stand on up. Next up, of course, is gonna be our squat. I'm gonna do my body weight squats for this first round, and then I'll do the modifications next. So 15 of these. We're coming down, nice and controlled, and press through those feet, come up. 1, good, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 5 more, 11, 12, 13, 14, last one, 15. It's been 90 seconds, a minute and a half. That means we have 3.5 minutes to go. This time I'm gonna do all my exercises using my box, okay, to help demonstrate for you guys. So start with those plank shoulder taps again. Here we go. 1, keep that core tight. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 5. Good. Shake out those arms if you need to. Maybe you're still on the ground. Maybe you're ahead of me. That's okay. 10 push-ups are next. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, nice job. 8, 9, last one. 10, good. I'm gonna turn this box a little bit lower just so that I can sit down, but still make sure that I'm working hard, okay? I'm gonna start in that seated position if I'm using a box or a chair or a couch. We got 15 body weight squats. Let's go ahead and bring it up. 1, back down, you can sit for a moment. 2, 3, good. Feel the box behind you each time. 4, 5, notice that my feet are not changing positions. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 5 more. 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. Very nice. We still got about 1:35 to go. That means we have time for one more round. Hands are back on the ground, wherever you want to be for your plank shoulder taps. Let's get them done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5. Shake out those arms. We got 10 push-ups to go. Let's see if we can do this whole round. Ready. Down in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Good. 15 squats. I'm going to use the box again, but this time, instead of sitting down each time, I'm just going to real lightly tap, come right back up. That's 1. Tap and back up. That's 2. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 2 more, 14, 15. We got 10 more seconds. Let's try and get a couple more of those plank shoulder taps. Whatever you can do. I'm going to use the box again this time. 1, 1, 2, 2. You got 3, 2, 1. Done. That's 5 minutes. That's it. That's all you had to do. Excellent job. You can see we got our heart rates pumping. We got our breathing going. Okay. I like to think that I can do some good exercise, and even I'm breathing heavy. All right. It's so easy to make time for that small burst of activity, and you can make it as accessible and as easy as possible. I always like to mix it up by changing the exercises throughout the workout so that you keep your mind active, right? You keep your mind engaged. You're not going to be focusing all the time. You're going to be focusing on trying to move, okay? Guys, something is better than nothing. It's so important to take time out of your day, even if it's just small snippets at a time. And guess what? It goes by so quickly, okay? Not only that, but you're not going to regret it, okay? I've never, ever, ever heard of somebody regretting taking time to exercise because you feel so great afterwards, all righty? Thank you guys so much for having me. I really do appreciate it. We've got a little bit of time left, so I would love to take any sort of questions, and then whenever possible from you, Lauren, I'm happy to give a little bit of a brief on Wounded Warrior Project just in general and what it is that we do and other sort of stuff available to those who are looking for our programs and services.
Yeah, Tom, thanks so much. You gave some really great tips and pointers. If I wasn't crammed in this small little space, I would have been moving around.
You can even do it in that small little space. Don't you worry.
Oh, I'm going to be doing some of them in my little closet in the corner of the house, hiding from my children currently. No, we really appreciate everything. So I did not see any questions come in. So I'll wait if we had any. I had just someone, Aaron wrote, thank you so much for these great tips. And they were so easy, and why not? And the biggest excuse is time. You're right about that. So, everyone just needs to make some in this crazy world we're living in right now. And I know I am a better employee, mother, spouse, when I take a little time for myself. So it's so easy to do.
Absolutely.
I'd love to give you the floor again to kind of, talk about the mission of Wounded Warrior Project real quick. We're so proud of our sponsorship and partnership with you guys. So please feel free. The floor is yours.
Of course. Well, as most people already may know, Wounded Warrior Project, we serve warriors who incurred any sort of injury or illness post September 11th, 2001. And while a lot of warriors feel as though they can't sign up because they feel like, oh, my wound's not combat related, it didn't happen overseas, or maybe it's not a visible wound, that's completely false. It's important for people to realize that Wounded Warrior Project is here to serve anybody, whether or not that injury is on or after September 11th, if it's visible or invisible, right? We want you to be engaged and know that you're eligible for our programming and all of our services, which come at zero cost to you and your families, right? We at WWP recognize that you paid your dues on the battlefield, and it's our turn to be able to turn around and serve you. So most of our programs and services are open to both family support members, is what we call our family members here, and warriors alike. And it's important to know also that you are never taking up somebody's spot within WWP. that somebody else might be able to use it more than you, or you feel as though there's somebody who may be out there with a bigger injury per se. That's really not the case. We are here and we have room for every single person who's eligible for our program to help honor and empower those wounded warriors and serve everyone who needs us in whatever capacity that might be. WWP has about 15 different programs and services, including, of course, physical health and wellness, which is the program that I come from, where we bring fitness and nutrition professionals to Wounded Warrior Project to engage with warriors in one-on-one coaching program situations, to bring those who are interested in increasing their fitness and nutrition levels and looking for overall guidance as they wade through that complex world of exercise and food and all those sort of things, to a space where they feel comfortable and where they feel supported. Now, maybe, of course, you're not looking for the physical health benefits. That's totally okay. Maybe you're more concerned with your VA benefits. And if that's the case, which is super common to a lot of new warriors who register with us, we can help with that too, right? We recognize the importance and how important it is to veterans and how complicated it is. And our benefits team is here to help walk you through the process of getting you the compensation you deserve, as well as help you with any sort of questions you might have, okay? We also have a really large mental health team to be able to work with the warriors' invisible wounds of service, stuff like PTSD, MST, or any sort of other mental health concerns you may be dealing with. And we do operate our mental health program on a continuum of care. It's one of the things we're most proud of here at WWP, being able to help meet warriors where they are, right? Whether that's having them help have access to inpatient care, intensive outpatient care through our partnerships with the Warrior Care Network, adventure-based coping and learning activities with our Project Odysseys, or simply just having somebody to support them and talk through their problems by making your everyday a little bit less stressful through our WWP Talk program, right? There's so many other sort of programs and services that I frankly just don't have the time to talk to today because I don't have another 3 hours. But the best thing that I can say is just get registered and ask questions whenever you can. Whenever I'm introducing new service members or veterans to Wounded Warrior Project, whether or not they're eligible or not at that very moment, I always like to tell them that once you are eligible and if you qualify, which means, I mean, any VA benefits rating, it could be 0% and you would still qualify. It's better to get signed up with us now and to get involved early before any sort of issues may become more apparent, because we all know that while those issues may stay dormant for a long time, when an immediate need for help from our programs and services may arise, we want you to be able to pick up the phone and start talking to someone right away and not worry about the stigma or the red tape that may stand in your way to prevent you from helping you get the help that you need.
Great advice. So make sure you go and register now. Again, Tom, thank you so much for your time today. All of your great tips, your little presentation, your 5 minutes workout. It was fantastic. We appreciate everything. We're going to close this session out now. I do want everyone to make sure they're going to hiringourheroes.org/events to see more of our upcoming events. And again, you can always catch up and watch our all of our videos that we're doing on this virtual career community. All of our sessions are posted about a week after we do these events. So you can go and head over to www.hiringourheroes.virtual.career-community. Oh, nope, not career-community, career-community, excuse me, I had it wrong. So bookmark it, make sure you can frequently access this. You can use all of our great videos at your leisure. So thank you everyone for attending, and we'll have this posted in about a week for you. Again, Tom, thanks for your time, and we will talk soon.
Of course, thank you again.
Bye-bye.